Greetings. Hi, friends. Good to have you all here. Hope you are safe and well. Bob Mosier, CEO, Chief Learning Evangelist for Applied Synergies. And this particular webinar series that we're starting called Performance First will be going on a quarterly basis, and it will be a free webinar series sponsored by the Performance Support Community. If you're not familiar with what that is, we'll send you more information as well as the 5 moments of need. It's great to have you all here. We hope they are helpful. This is our first one, so we'd love to hear feedback. And by all means, if you want to send us information and be a part of others, please do. We also have a Performance First podcast series that you're welcome to hopefully subscribe to. And we do hope that it is all helpful. So greetings. And again, friends, hope in this crazy world, you are also safe and well in the wonderful parts of the world that are visiting us. So great. So developing soft skills in the workflow. This is one of my favorite topics. Let's get to this in a second. So friends, 45 minutes long, we promise to keep to the time. This is being recorded. So resources wise, you will get a copy of the recording. You'll get a copy of the slides. And another kind of cool thing that we're using is something called Mural. Now, I'm not sure all of you were able to get into Mural. Jenna, thank you, has posted a link in the chat box. If you want to get in there now. If you've not been in Mural before, it may make you register. It's a free thing. So you may have to do that. If you've been in there before, let's take a look at my screen. Here is Mural, and we'll be using it throughout the session for 2 simple things. Oriented that in just a moment. But more importantly, the Mural will be open, friends, for the next 2 weeks. The next 2 weeks. So as you get the recording, as ideas hit you, as ahas hit you, as questions hit you, any of those kinds of things, by all means, you are welcome to come into Mural at any time. It will be live and available at any time in the 2 weeks, and you can post your things here. And you see over here to the right, if I click on questions, there's a little outline to the right here, friends, I clicked on. Notice it oriented to these multiple purple stickies. If you have a question during the workshop, or more importantly, after, if you go back to Mural on your machine, if you have it running in your browser, you have to have it open in your browser, friends, in the back of Zoom. Kind of got to multitask. But in a moment, I'll also give you a way to ask questions as well. You can click in any of these links here, and you can put your question. You can also put an aha in. What are you learning? What's helpful? What should we talk more about as a community? You can put them in here. And no, you will get the link, Esther and others. The link should be in the chat. If you register after Friday, if you scroll up in the chat, there is a link there. And Jenna, you may want to plop that in there again. This will let you join Mural. And then at the very end, kind of fun, we'd love you to know what you think of the session. So if I clicked over here on overall helpfulness, it will let you drag a finger up there to where you think the event rated. And wherever you drop it, it will let you tell us what you thought. So again, kind of fun. What it does for us, friends, which is really wonderful, is it lets us extend this event well past the session, because I can look at your questions. If I can't get them to them today, you can ask them days after. And I promise what I will do in the Mural is keep it up to date by answering the posty questions that you have. If I don't get them today because we have a short time, I will promise to get to them in the coming days. So if you don't get into Mural today, that's okay. You can get into it with at another time, and we'll be sure to send you the link. If you can't and you have questions, by all means, just put them in chat. And my colleague, Jenna Smith, will be sure that they make their way to the Mural. Okay, so again, if you can't get to Mural, no big deal. By all means, put questions in chat. And again, with 45 minutes, I do not know if that's why we're going to use it, because I don't think I can get to all of them. But I want to be sure that I get to as many as I can. And I will promise in the coming days to get to all of them. Number 2, tons of resources, friends, on this thing. Tons. We have websites, podcasts, workshops. We'll talk about that a little bit. We even have an online community called the Performance Support Community. You see in the top right, that is the support of this, a co-sponsor of this event. We will send you in a follow-up link all the resources I've talked about, so you will be good to go, and it will not only have to be today. Let's have a dialogue on this thing. All right, so chat activity. Hopefully you can all get to the chat. I see a number of you already are. And Jenna, would you put in there, make sure at the bottom in the 2, friends, if you've used Zoom before, I have a feeling you may have, that it does say panelists and attendees. The little blue box down by the 2. And would you answer this question in there? And Jenna, would you put question 1 for me as a divider and then hit an enter there so it's perfect? Friends, what do learners find most challenging about soft skill programs after they take them? What do you think our learners find most challenging about soft skill programs after they take them? How to apply, applying in insights, applying, having time to apply, how to practically apply. Oh my goodness, opportunity to practice, application, putting them into practice, apply and work. You guys should have written this workshop, applying relevance to work. You guys, absolutely. And if I may, friends, I don't know if it stops with soft skill training, to be honest. But this apply and practice thing is hard, right? Jenna, could you put a question 2 in there for me, please? How about this one? How does L&D, what do we find most challenging about soft skill programs when we design them? What's hard about designing soft skill programs from an L&D perspective? Relevance transfer, realistic scenarios, broad skills gap, application to many, upcoming, aligning to job role, being able to meaningful experience, make it new, content seems vague, measurable and tangible, measurable success. Guys, you've absolutely nailed it. You have absolutely nailed it. And that is why we are here. And if I may, and please, I hope those of you who do know me and have sat through a webinar with me before, I'm biased about this. I think training suffers from the same problem. I don't know about you. For you who don't know me, I have been in the learning and development space for 38 years, which is older than Jenna is alive, who's helping me on this webinar for my company. Guys, I have seen it all. And I think the elephant in the room for us in L&D has always been relevance and application. Broad audience sitting in front of us, whether it's virtual, e-learning, or face-to-face. This has always been the problem. So what we want to talk about today is, although we're going to get into soft skills, which is something I think is really neglected in this area, to be honest, this applies to everything. And we can talk more about that as we continue. So in 45 minutes or 43 that I have left, 3 principles I'm going to cover today. And by all means, in the chat after, in the mural after, in email after. Let's go into this in much greater detail. Number 1, hopefully you fundamentally believe this, because in my work in the last 15 years or 20 years of doing workflow design, which is what we're going to talk about today, we have seen thousands, literally thousands of times across every content area, across every vertical, every ethnicity, everything, everything. We've seen that learning in the workflow is the most powerful place for learning to occur. It always has been. But here's the caveat. How does it complement formal instruction? This has always been our quandary. And we have, myself included, too often defaulted or led with formal instruction because we can't wrestle this beast to the ground. We're going to talk about that. Number 2, this is the big thing with soft skills, folks. And you said it in your challenge in the chat. Soft skill, listen to this, has a tactical side as well, and it is called the workflow. It has to come into instruction, and we have to design for it after. We're talking about both of those things today. I'll say it again. The workflow is the tactical context of soft skills. It is where they manifest themselves, and our learners prove that they got it. That is in the workflow. We have to understand and include that more as well. And then last, the attributes, here we go. Competency. Any guys in here struggle with competencies, or you do competency training? Particularly leadership tends to pivot on, look at Gabrielle, competencies. But look at this. The attributes of and I agree with this. The attributes of competency can be taught. Look what follows. But operationalizing them, friends, requires ongoing reinforcement. Here goes, in the workflow, in the context. Let me give you one, friends. Empathy. Sound familiar at all? Since this darn COVID thing has gone on across this globe, I've been a part of thousands of discussions across the globe with learning leaders, with learning professionals. And one need we're hearing, which I totally get, is our leaders need to be more empathetic. They need to be better listeners. They need to be better virtual managers. They need to communicate better virtually. Friends, I get all those soft skills, but if I'm a manager, how do I do that? What is the context of those things? So sure, they can be taught. They need to be taught, and totally agree, Keith. We all need to be more empathetic, right? But empathy comes out through behavior. Soft skills, friends, come out through tasks performance, and behavior. I don't know any manager who comes in and says, well, today I'm going to be empathetic. And I'm going to be an empathetic person. They may want to be, and hopefully they try to be, but here's the problem. The very next thing that hits them is the workflow. And the question becomes, how do I effectively use empathy in the tasks I'm required to do? In this case, I'm going to kind of pivot on this today as a leader. If you don't mind, you guys, I'm going to kind of use leadership training as an example here, although it's one of many soft skill courses, but I think it's probably one of the most prevalent ones. And I think one that challenges all of us. So this example I'm going to use, but this does apply across all soft skill stuff. So let's get into this. Okay. Let's talk about this workflow thing. And let's put it in the context of the instruction that we do. And those of you who have seen me present before, I will apologize. This first little foray, I want to be sure we're grounded in workflow learning in general and why it is so powerful and important, and the fact that it can be and should be an intentional part of our design. My team, friends, when we go in to do work for clients, we design first and foremost, and if we can, listen to this, only for the workflow. So think on that for a second. We do not go in to design courses, classes, e-learning, virtual instruction. Now, guess what? We do those things. we still, those are part of our toolkit. But in the last 10 years of my professional career, pre-COVID, we've completely flipped in this idea that what is on the screen right now was a world I was in for 20 years of my career. I was into training. It was my one-hit wonder. I'd done everything to it. I'd streamed it, virtualized it, everything. I even VCR'd it once, for you young people on this call who know what a VCR is, right? But in the end, friends, its job was to do this. Its job was to introduce stuff to people who didn't know, maybe let them practice, which by the way is a great thing, but I schooled them up so they could be at some level of mastery of both the task and the concept. Sound familiar? Here's the problem, friends. That is not enough, particularly in soft skills. There's that wonderful word cloud of competencies and soft skills. How do we help that get contextualized out here? Friends, we're not in the mastery school up business. We are in the competency business. In the end, our work is graded by the degree to which those we serve are competent in the skills that we teach. Soft skills, sure. But here's the problem, friends. In too many organizations that we go into and that I used to be a part of, I had nothing for that light blue thing. I did not have a strategy for that. I designed for the green and hoped it worked in the blue. And look what happens to the green, by the way. We've all seen that drop off. The death spiral of instruction, as I like to call it, right? So a training first strategy does little for transfer. And guess what, friends? Look at sustain. The world we live in today is changing at a rate I don't know any course that can keep up with, any e-learning can keep up with, any virtual instruction can keep up with. It's literally by the hour, if not the day. And so this was my world 10 years ago. And no wonder I fell short, particularly in soft skills, because this vague word cloud out here to the left had to somehow miraculously, as you all put in chat, show up where it was supposed to in a applicable way in the transfer and sustain stages of my learner's journey. I was not present. I was not intentionally present in the blue part, right? Well, that's where we're going today. I am now, it's called workflow learning framework or workflow learning design. And when we design a soft skill course, or I shouldn't, I said that wrong. When we design to enable soft skills, see, hear the change? When we design to enable a system, when we design to enable salespeople, when we design to enable call center reps, you fill in the blank. The calling is to enable them. We design workflow learning elements first, and then we design training second. And watch the chart. This is what happens. Three very important things happen in this shift. Number one, notice training way smaller. And I'm going to get to this later. This is called targeted learning. We like to call it. I'll get to this at the end of my workshop. Half at least. In the last 10 years, 15 years of my work, my training footprint in all my deliverables has reduced by half, if not more. because I don't design for that first. I design for transfer and for sustain first. I do that through workflow learning. And this is the definition. It is embedded learning, notice, and support. It is instruction, but it is also support, which is a different thing, in the workflow to be accessed while doing the work. Now, I want to be clear here. This is not e-learning, by the way. It didn't say it's available in the workflow to be available, in the workflow. If I have an important pivot here, friends, I want to be sure you understand, is workflow learning means while I am doing my work, I consume a tool like performance support or an electronic performance support system, an EPSS, that is contextualized by my workflow and is complement to targeted training. I learned it in targeted training, and I got just enough in targeted training to enable myself to continue that blue part when I was on my own in the workflow, right? Workflow learning, okay? Soft skills, friends, absolutely. If I may, among friends here, I hope, would you agree we overteach? When we look, if you pulled a course off the shelf, or an outline off your virtual instruction, or an e-learning off of your, look at your answers. You guys, but let me give you what I hope some of the most freeing advice that you're going to get in a while. The reason we had to is because it was frankly really all we had. When our deliverables are a green modality only, and I'll just speak for myself, 90% of what I built, whether it took a different form or function or technology, in the end, it was just a digitized training tool, or a one-to-one training tool, or a asynchronous training tool, or a virtual training tool. But the moral of the story was its job was to do the green stuff. So guess what? We put everything in there because we have to. When you make the shift to workflow instruction and you build performance support and EPSSs, when you build them first, we're going to show a bit of an example in a little bit. That's why training shrinks by half, because here's the best part. It no longer, listen to this, has to carry the burden of instruction like it always has. And by the way, it never should have. Because remember principle one, the best place to learn is in the workflow. So where do we go from here? Soft skills, let's get very specific. I love this, have a tactical side to them as well. And guess what? It's called the workflow. And the reality is, I'll share my story. Until 10 years ago, I didn't know what the workflow was. I had an SME tell me what I had to teach. I knew the content I was supposed to teach: empathy, listening skills, conflict resolution, diversity. Guys, I knew the outline. I did not know the context that my leaders went back to lead in. That's the difference in this discipline. It's called the workflow, and you're going to learn how to design for it. It's called rapid workflow analysis. It has to have a name. We design for the workflow, right? Can I give a specific example of workflow interventions to improve soft skills? Yeah, I'm going to do it right now. Yeah, so thank you so much, Gabrielle. So let me walk you through an example of if you guys understand, I have to keep the client separate from this because I didn't want to give away any trade secrets. But I'm going to walk you through a scenario in the next 20 minutes or so about where we were asked to do this for soft skills. And here's the thing, friends. The danger of soft skills is we think they're soft. we don't. But the reality, friends, is soft skills, listen to this, are performed tactically. Soft skills are performed tactically through hard skills, through doing something. And if you look at this on the left, friends, this was what they wanted us to do. This was the leadership course they wanted us to teach. This was for regional sales managers for a large company. And they wanted them, this is their outline, you guys. So sorry about the nomenclature. But notice the thing in the middle. This was to develop teams and coach individuals, being a good inspirational leader. And they had to build their bench. They had to develop, these were their words. But here's the problem, friends. When we did workflow analysis of the regional sales managers, and we talked about the workflow, sure, they had to do some of these things, but guess what? 80% of their job were these things. They also had to manage their territory. They were regional sales managers who had to do all these boxes while they led. And they also had to be responsible to corporate things, right? They had to be responsible to corporate compliance, all these regulations, right? So guys, here's the thing. This, friends, is the workflow of leadership. Think about that for a moment. If this was, because what is the workflow of leadership? It's what a leader has to do in the context of performing their work. Look at this. This was a huge aha to the L&D team that had us do this work, because until we came along and looked at the workflow, all they wrote was the light purple part, you guys. All they'd written was the light purple stuff. And that was going to be a 3 to 5 day course. Here's the problem. The regional sales managers, when they left the course, they went back to this purple, all purple, light and dark world. And they had no idea. See the arrows here in the middle, jumping between managing the territory and managing the people? They did not know how to make that jump, friends. They didn't know how, here's the key word, to contextualize what they had been taught. Because when they left the course, they only got 1/3 of what they had to do every day. And if you ask them, frankly, they would say that 90% of their time is spent in the dark purple stuff. Only 10% of their time do they get to actually lead. So think about it in a leadership course, how much of being a leader we skip. Think about it. And again, I'm being careful here, friends. I'm not being malicious at all, right? But all of our courses on competencies, all of our courses on soft skills, without the context of the work, no wonder, you said earlier, people can't make the jump. So question earlier about this is what we designed for. This is an example of a leadership training course for regional sales managers. The first thing we did was figure out the tactical work. Let me define that further for you. So take a look at this. So all leaders have tactical work to do in the workflow while they lead. They don't step out of the tactical work and lead. They lead while doing their jobs. So notice I'll keep the diagram down there on the left, but I want to get into the minutia of the design. So during the workflow analysis, you have to look across the whole thing, the light purple and the dark purple. And you basically ask them, what do you do in a day when you are a regional sales manager? Notice I didn't say when you're a leader. I want to know what this leader does under the job title of regional sales manager, and look what they did in the tactical side. These were the tactical skills. Notice every red bar, I'll give you a little definition. Every red bar aligns to a purple box in the bottom left. And look at the tasks that they had to do. This was the tactical work of leading their territory. But guess what? Look at this other one. They also had soft skill. Here comes tasks to do in leading, building their bench, managing individual development, develop existing leaders. This is a huge aha for me, friends, when I made this jump to performance and workflow. And I knew why my leadership courses didn't work, because I never took those principles and made them tactically aligned with doing the job of leadership. Guys, we don't judge leaders by competencies. We judge leaders by their performance as a leader that is supported by competencies. But until we can look at the tactical level of leading or any soft skill that we teach, the light bulb does not go on in the alignment of those principles to doing. So what do you give them? You give them an EPSS. And again, I apologize, in the time we have, I can't show you one. Be happy to do that another time. There actually are some examples on some of the resources we'll send you. There's some recordings of some examples. But what I want to be sure you see is this isn't just a diagram, friends. This was used in a digital coach, an EPSS, that behind all these boxes, you clicked on it. And it could also be in a handheld. It could be in a lot of managers want them on their phone or their whatever, right? Behind each of these boxes, this is a digital coach. It's a digital guide that takes people into all the resources, all the things they need to perform these boxes. They don't have to memorize them. They just have to know how to look them up. Einstein once said, I don't know my phone number because I can look it up. right? So much of what we dump in 3-day, 5-day, 2-week leadership courses are gone in the first 2 days of that experience and are definitely gone a day after they leave, because they don't have this tactical application and a tool like this to guide them through doing. Meets all 5 moments. If you've heard me before, you know what these are. Leaders have to apply, they have to keep up, they have to get out of trouble, they have to learn brand new stuff, and they have to learn more new stuff. Well, guess when they have to do these? While working, right? How do we ensure they look them up? Great question. Here's the best part, friends. I get this asked all the time. How do you know if your performance support is working? Well, guess what? People don't use things that stink. people don't use things that aren't helpful. All these tools have analytics on the back end that I can see who clicked on what, how often, where, when, and how long. All these analytics on the back end. I can also know, to your question, who's not clicking on anything. Guys, sometimes not use is a valuable analytic to filling skills gaps, right? So I can help guide them to the tool. I can help remediate them in the tool. So even if they're not using certain parts, that's not a bad thing. What it means is I have to guide them and help them know where, how, and when to find it. That's why the EPSS is always taught in class. The we stopped bringing, listen to this, folks, we stopped bringing 3-ring binders to our courses, and we bring in EPSS instead, because the EPSS is what works when they're working. A binder's hard. Have you ever seen some of the leadership binders out there? They're kind of tough to reference, right? Question, Gabriel, what EPSS? I will answer that in the Mural, Gabriel, after, because there's a bunch that we actually use depending on the scenario. She asked about what the specific tool is. We'll give you a bunch after that we have used depending on need, depending on a whole bunch of stuff, actually. But great question. Here's my favorite part of this whole thing. So that's great about guiding leaders. Look at this last thing. Look at this. This approach, listen to this, frees up the thought process and energy of a leader so they can focus on leading. It provides context for soft skills to be applied and learned. Friends, what I love about this methodology, I don't care if it's soft skills or hard skills, memorization is no longer necessary. And that has been the burden of the classroom to its death. That's why no one can recall 2 days after, because we overtaught and they're overwhelmed. The power of this and what a leader wants to do is, if I'm not going to do a performance appraisal for 6 months, friends, you can teach me performance appraisals and empathy and difficult conversations and listening skills all you want. But until I get to that performance appraisal, I have no context to apply it. So why can't I use my EPSS before my first PA to go through a run through of the skills that I have to teach, the skills that I have to remember? And there's all kinds of things we can build into these tools: self-assessments, quizzes, adaptive learning, all these wonderful embedded workflow tools that are instruction, but not the one we historically think of with our tools of e-learning, virtual, and classroom. Lastly, last 15 minutes. Hopefully you're doing okay. Here's where the rubber starts meeting the road. So we've got this workflow. We understand the task. We understand the context of leading. I'll use leading as an example again. But then we get these darn words, right? How do we bring this to the new tactical world of leading we now understand, right? I want to be, and you can be as intentional about this as the task that we taught a moment ago. So the challenge is operationalizing these, not getting it. I get empathy. I get listening skills. I can tell you the 5 steps of a disruptive of handling a disruptive conversation. That does not mean a week or 2 or a month later, when I'm confronted with that, I'll have any clue what to do, right? Or how to be empathetic. We have to bring this all together with this idea. Remember this? This is the tasks for build your bench, the task for managing individual development. Look at this. These are those, and again, this was for this company. This is, so again, I apologize about the wording, but this is an example from a design. These are the competencies, friends, that they wanted these regional sales managers to exhibit while they did the tactical steps of leading. Remember, leading is exhibited tactically in the workflow. It's not an esoteric, abstract, soft thing. It is done through true skills and performance. But I have to somehow link, let me pick one, creating ongoing dialogue. I have to inspire, I love that word, professional development. What's that? What does that mean, inspire professional development? Well, guess what, friends? If you go down these tasks on the left, look at the X's. These competencies align with tasks. They align with performance. So when we build our EPSS, when we build our strategy for support, we put a link, a resource, a video, I don't care, fill in the blank, to the competency, but we do it and we embed it and we make it accessible in the context of the task being performed. There's the alignment we've missed. That's why you all said earlier, people struggle going from class to application because we have missed saying the push pin goes here in the map. When you're being empathetic, and sure, I can be empathetic all the time. I get that. But there are times where empathy fits more than other things in the tasks of doing. I hope I'm an empathetic leader all the time. I hope I'm a good listener all the time. But if I want to get better at it, if I want to build that cognitive muscle, I have to assign it, like anything else that I learn and get better at, to doing it where it is best performed. So this grid on the right, we align it to the task. And when they're out in the workflow, developing a performance plan, see it down here? I should have numbered these, but about the 7th or 8th thing down here, I'm supposed to develop a performance plan. Well, that's where I use investigate challenges, and I use, sorry, I'm reading sideways, facilitate coordination of teams. That is the sweet spot. Although sure, soft skills can be everywhere, but when I'm a manager and I have to apply those concepts of the soft skills, I would get support of doing that in developing the plan. That's the tie that binds. So how do you help? Well, you give them all kinds of reinforcement when they're out in the field. These tools, this is what we call a quick check. So let's say I just did a PA. Here's an interesting thing about performance support and soft skills. A lot of people, you guys, one of the myths of performance support is that it is only for hard skills, system pop-up help screens. And friends, that is so wrong. Over 95% of the work my company does is in the non-technical arena. It has anything to do with IT or systems, right? But a wonderful lady, Allison Rossett, Dr. Allison Rossett, since retired, she was at San Diego State University, one of my heroes in our profession. She wrote this great book called Job Aids and Performance Support. And in there, she taught us this principle that the reason we miss these tools in soft skills is because we think they're only helpful if they pop up when someone is in the process of performing. Otherwise, we can't use them. Guess what, friends? That's so wrong. There are 2 other times, soft skills in particular, where these tools can be incredibly helpful. What about a half an hour before my PA? I'm going to do a PA in a half an hour for one of my employees, and I know it's going to go hard. It's going to be hard. The person's going to be put on report. So I have to remember all these legal things to be concerned about, and I have to be empathetic. There you go. And I have to be a good listener. Well, why can't I then, in my preparation for performing, get all those things I need in my performance support, 2 clicks, 10 seconds, right in front of me, and I go into the behavior successful. Doesn't pop up when I'm doing it, not going to be available when I'm having the PA. I'm going to be talking to a person during a PA. And here's the other time. What about after? This is one of the big ahas from Allison's book. What about after? What if let's say the performance appraisal goes bad, which happens, performance goes bad. Well, guess what? Adults are highly receptive to remediation when they fail. Not for long, but highly receptive to remediation. So the person walks out of my office, they're in tears. That was not good. That was not good. And I just don't want to do that again. I need to, here goes, learn from how I performed badly. Look at this checklist, you guys. Look at this 1 through 5 rubric. Did I remain calm? Yeah, I did. See the 1 through 5? Did I reflect back my understanding? No, I talked too much. No, I didn't listen well. Okay. Right? I give myself a evaluation. These can be digital or otherwise. And guess what? I have the tool, I have the system, I have the resources right in front of me to remediate on my leadership skills in the context of doing. Total different look of, well, I'm going to go to the next leadership course, or I'm going to get out my binder later and read the chapter on listening. A lot of people don't do that. They may want to or have the intent to, but why not give them a context workflow tool, 2 clicks, 10 seconds, that in the specific task being performed, think about the rubric earlier, think about the tasks earlier, think about the diagram of the squares earlier. I get to what I need before, sometimes if I can, during, but also after. So targeted learning, let's wrap up with this. So thanks, Gabrielle. So here's the thing. It still does come down to training, but I hope you're getting from the flow of the outline and my whole shtick here. When we sit down to write, not just soft skills, but any performance enabling solution, we still have training in there. But in the old days, you guys, I would sit down to write a 5-day course before I'd even put pen to paper. I would sit, people come in my office, you ever get this? Everyone come in your office and go, I would like a 4-day course on sales training. I want an 8-day course on our CRM. I'd like a 3 e-learnings on leadership. We need 4 e-learnings on safety compliance. You guys, what? In this world, you still will make some of those things, but you only make them for things that are necessary for that kind of a thing. Remember, the workflow, when it can do it, is the best place to learn. Look at this rubric. Every task, if I could take you back, remember the yellow and red grid? Every task we then evaluate on, listen to this, the criticality of failure in the workflow. I'll say it again. We evaluate objectively, the criticality of failure. If they can't perform that task, soft or hard, what is the outcome? Look at this rubric. Look at a 1. A 1 is, frankly, almost nothing happens. They kind of feel bad or awkward. Or look at 7. Catastrophic. Like people could die if I'm a doctor, or my company gets sued if I violate an ethics law, or we lose a customer because you guys, that's a 7 or a 5. Well, here's what you do, friends. Anything that's up to a 4, I don't teach anymore. Why? Because I give you an EPSS, I give you performance support, I'll teach you how to use it in class, and you can learn those things in the best way possible without hurting anyone. Remember, we can't teach everything. Let's stop it. Let's stop the madness. We cannot teach everything. We have to stop thinking we can. We have to stop telling our SMEs that we can. We can't. So we have to figure out, listen to this, where best to put instruction where it's not hurtful if they fail. So 1 through 4 is EPSS, 5 through 7s, notice it's all in the EPSS. It's all in the, especially 5s through 7s. But I'm not going to let you just learn that way. I'm going to teach it to you. I'm going to bring you into a class. We're going to do scenarios. We're going to do practice. We're going to do trial and error. We're going to fail. But I don't have to put you through 6 days of leadership compliance anymore, competencies anymore, because you're going to forget more than half of them. You're not going to use even the other half for 6 months. And because I didn't let you learn it in the context of doing in a structured way, I'm not saying throw them to the wolves, in a structured way, you don't apply it. There are so few learners that can make the cognitive jump from our current classes to the workflow on their own. It's not their fault. It's not something we're doing to them on purpose. Well, we kind of are. But the bottom line is, let's use all 5 moments and the workflow in a responsible, notice I'm saying responsible way. So let's look what happens. Let's wrap this up with an example. Remember this before, right? So here's I'm going to take you right back to where we were a moment ago. Here's the build and manage. There's the tasks. Here's the link to the competencies over here, right? Remember I said this was for regional sales directors, RSDs. See them up here? RSD. What we found out when we did the actual analysis, The RSD, listen to this, friends, actually had 4 other people that they counted on. 4 other leaders. Some of them weren't even called leaders, but the regional sales directors considered them directors and leaders in their groups who also supported them in the workflow. Look what we did. We did critical skills analysis 1 through 7 across all of the roles. And what we learned was, although sure, the RSDs, a lot of them were 5s, but look, there was a 3. A lot of them were 5s or 7s. But look at these other roles, friends, that we weren't even paying attention to. We didn't even understand what they did. 5s for the vertical marketing lead. That lead doesn't mean leader, but that was kind of their role. Look at all the responsibility they had. And by the way, maybe they could delegate. Look at the green. Maybe the leaders could say, look, this is, why do I have to do all of this? Just because I took the course, just because my role says that I'm the regional sales director. If I understood the workflow across the roles in my department, why can't I delegate, share responsibility, or look at, why can't I mentor people up? And why shouldn't they do it? Not so I don't have to do it, but because it's what divides and conquers the work. It puts the responsibility where it belongs. You know, leadership is not a one size fits all, send everyone to a course and then send them home with a certificate thing. The complexity and the shades of gray of a workflow, until I started doing work this way, I never understood. But now I get why putting all these people through a course on these things over here on the right through 5 days didn't work. And by the way, I think when they left, they understood them. I would argue that when the people left that course, they probably understood these things over here, but no clue or struggled with application. So, guiding principles, we're wrapping up. What's next? We're going to do this again on, or something like it, on the 29th. Our wonderful friends at Conduit are going to join us for some research that the Training Institute did on how do you identify high-performing companies, back to performance. What behaviors do they share? How do they look at the workflow? We're going to talk about the research, and we are going to show examples then. If you're interested in more of this, we do have, if you attended this workshop, you can get some money off of our future certificate course that teaches workflow analysis and blah, 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 blah. We'll send you this as follow-up, but we do hope that it has been helpful. Now I'm going to bounce over to Mural, and we do have a couple questions. Can you recommend great resources for rapid workflow analysis? Yes, we will send a way to understand that better. I think actually I think somebody's, there it is. How much does corporate culture feed into using those performance support tools? That's a great question. In failure, it absolutely does, right? And so that is a part of making the shift, that you understand how to bring and allow, because by the way, guess what, friends, it's happening anyway. Failure into the workflow. So now it's not about whether people will fail. It's how do we help them get out of it? And thank you for the reminder of the EPSS technologies. Ahas, there's a bunch. Love that. Look at you guys. So here's the good news, friends. I know we're wrapping up. I see arrows all over the screen. Here's the good news. This will be open for 2 weeks. 2 weeks. Put everything in here that you want. I promise that I will come in and I will answer every purple postie. Every purple. So as you watch this again, we'll send you a link. When you see the recording again, I promise that I will come in, let it settle, get your team in a room and let them watch it. Get your lines of business in a room that are making you do 5 days of leadership training and have them watch it. And if you have any questions, if there's any way that I can be of help or of service, the Mural link will be open. We'll send it again after this is done, and we would be happy to answer any questions we can. I sure hope this has been helpful. I know it's been kind of quick, but follow up. You know where I live. You'll be hearing from us. And by all means, friends, let's keep the conversation going. So much depends on us doing this well. It really, really does. Happy to help all we can. Please be safe. Be well in these crazy times. This is Bob Mosier. Appreciate you being here, friends.